This is a really interesting interview on Q&A. It's interesting because it never kind of went anywhere. They talked quite a lot about the process to do with receiving complaints. And of course, this is all about the Costello McSkimming cover-up. And I'm only going to play you one clip from it.
You mean Costa?
What did
Costello.
I say?
You said
Costa.
Costello.
Thank you. I retract and apologize. Costa. And I'm only going to play you one clip. There was a lot of talk in this interview about, is it normal practice for a complaint about police to come to the minister's office and then be forwarded back to police? And Jack uses a couple of examples. So if I had an issue about, one of Shane Jones's department and I sent it to Shane Jones's office, would you expect that complaint? And he's saying, rather than to go through the channels of the minister's office, to then go back to the place that's being complained about. If you were in a workplace and you had a complaint about your manager, and so you sent a complaint to the CEO, would they then send it to the manager to sort out? That's the kind of question he's asking. Now, the problem is, Chewie, it's not a problem. The reality is that system is not necessarily wrong. If there was a 1 year police officer, they've been in the police force for 1 year, and someone in the public made a complaint about that police officer for 1 year and it went to the minister's office, obviously the minister's not going to handle that complaint about a 1 year police officer, and it would go back to the police. But it's also undeniable that the system is broken because of the broken result we got in this instance. So the conversation is kind of like, the minister is not necessarily wrong, but he also kind of is at the same time. He's going to say, well, the system's always worked. And it's like, yeah, until it didn't. I've got no warrant of fitness for my car. I've never got a ticket before. The system's always worked until I got pulled over by the police and got a ticket for my warrant of fitness. It's a really dumb answer to say, but the system's always worked, rather than go, you know what? This is the part where he's wrong. At no point does he go, yes, the system we had set up was completely wrong. Obviously it was completely wrong, because look what the fuck just happened. Because if the system was right, this wouldn't have happened. But the reason that I struggled with this interview is a lot of what is said is correct. I can imagine there'll be lots of incidences that a complaint would go to the minister's office, then back to the group, because, as I said, the minister's not going to investigate a complaint about a 20-year-old first-year police officer. But equally, the system is also broken, because look what happened. I think the evidence is there to say the system was broken. And the minister never seems to quite get to the point that, yes, the system is broken. He gets quite defensive. And I've put in the show notes, we, you and me, Chewie, and everyone almost in society, had a lot of grace for this minister last week. And we were all pretty much like, it seems that everything's been done. It seems that everything's above board. There doesn't seem to be anything that these guys can be held responsible for, ministers, prime ministers. He got 36 emails to his office from the woman known, I think, as Z. 36. And he's like, well, the system we had, I never saw them. Yeah. So the system's broken, but it was working until this point. Yeah. But the system shouldn't have worked, and he never quite gets there. So I find this frustrating, because there's not exactly a massive hypocrisy or incorrect data or anything that he points to, but the system is obviously broken, because look what just fucking happened. And if the system wasn't like this, this wouldn't have happened. But also, lots of complaints would go to the ministers and correctly go back to the police. So yeah, I find it all a bit frustrating. But I've gone to the part of the conversation where Jack starts to talk about the oversight system failure, and he's right. The oversight system failure. So this was the way they had it set up was wrong, as is evidenced by the result it gave us. And I'll just leave it there now. I'm going to explain it for a fourth time. We'll have a listen to what they've got to say.
I think we all accept the grave failings that have been identified in this report came as the result of police leadership.
Yeah.
But in the interests of comprehensive accountability, do you accept it was a failing not to establish a better oversight system?
Yes. So the only answer to this is, in hindsight, we now know that there was a failing because look what happened. And he can't get there. I don't know whether this is from Luxon's school of middle management, that you're never supposed to acknowledge your wrongdoings. But yes, what Jack's just said is the oversight system wasn't really fit for purpose, was it? He doesn't say, as is evidenced by the result, but obviously it wasn't as is evidenced by the result. But the minister doesn't get there and won't get there. And it's fucking frustrating.
Complaints to your office regarding police behaviour before this incident?
The system has always worked. The reason why it failed is because we had a police executive that had major...
Yes, and you didn't have a system set up to catch that failure. So yes, it wasn't fit for purpose and we're changing it. End of interview.
Integrity issues. And they were trying to protect one of their own. So the system has always worked. Nothing has changed. It's always worked.
Except that any complaint about police behaviour under the system that you established in your office wasn't going to the Minister of Police. It was going to police. Can you see that oversight was under the previous system, that oversight or lack of oversight was a systemic failure?
So the Jevon McSkimming email...
I know that we mock Mark a little bit by going, Mark Mitchell. But being really honest, and I haven't mulled over this for the whole weekend to come to this answer, but immediately I was thinking, Mark, this is the answer. Obviously, the Minister of Police is not going to investigate every complaint that comes to him about the police. However, what we need to put in place is if there is a repetitive and serious complaint about a senior police officer, it must stay with us. Done.
Yeah.
He can't get there. He won't get there. And I think, respectfully, as I say something very disrespectful, he's not smart enough. He can't think on his feet to go, actually, there's a really easy solution here. And that's what I think we're seeing right now.
They would have been raised with my political team. What is effectively my chief of staff, my chief political advisor, or one of the advisors, one of my political team would be notified. But the protocol had in there that no one was to be notified, no one was to be aware. It was just to be sent straight through the Commissioner's office.
So this is the problem. Yeah, and Chewie, like I was talking about that movie Harriet, right? Harriet Tubman. If people have seen it, they'll know this. But at one point, what happens is Harriet Tubman runs away. She's a slave, and then she comes back and she meets up with her dad again. And her dad, I've got nothing that I can use. Her dad comes out with material over his eyes, right? And I thought, oh shit, has he gone blind? And he goes, I'm not going to look at your face. I'm not going to look at your face. I'm not going to look at your face. And then when the slave owner comes to the father's cabin and says to him, where is she? He goes, I have not laid my eyes on her face for a week. I do not know. So in other words, the father's setting up a system where he can tell the truth because he has not laid eyes on her. Because he covered his eyes. Now, I'm not accusing Mitchell of this, but the answer he's given for someone else on some other day could also be a way of being Pontius Pilate and just wiping your hands of it and go, didn't see it, couldn't see it. So the system wasn't fit for purpose. Again, as is evidenced by the result we got. Chewie.
Yeah, so I've got a couple of thoughts so far. First of all, the fantastic sentence, the system's always worked, apart from this case where it failed, is an amazing, he's just glossed over what he's just said. It's incredible. Look, I think it is the system that's working as intended. It's protected everybody. Nobody's seen anything.
Maybe.
I'm not responsible for any of this. Dude, you're the police minister. Anything to do with the police portfolio ultimately rests with you. And if none of these emails have been sent to your office, I would fucking give you a pass. But your office was obviously had the thought process of the minister doesn't need to see this. We'll just flick him on. And I want my yardstick is here is if we swapped out Mark Mitchell, if we put another minister in here, either in National or one of the opposition police and justice spokespeople, Ginny Anderson or whatever, do you think the same thing would have happened? Do you think this is an office problem or a his office problem?
Yeah,
possibly. Now I'm going to play devil's advocate here a little bit and say that there are a lot of emails that come into ministers, and some of them might be from utter cranks, because you see those Facebook posts from crazy people and all sorts of, and you know, you can just get the police minister's email and send him an email. But whoever had seen these 36 emails come in, and I would assume that they would be reasonably consistent about what they were saying. No point. 36 instances of this email, someone's gone, you know what? Maybe we should run this past the boss.
Let me interrupt you. Sorry.
Just isn't it a forward-on situation?
Only because he did talk in this about where the emails went to, and he straight away either misspoke or lied, and I don't know which it is, so no accusation. He says, you know, such and such secretary receives the emails and doesn't read them. And Jack went, well, she must read them a bit because she's got to know where to send them. And he went, oh yeah, well, you know, she reads it a little bit, but only as much as to know how to send it on. So which is obviously ridiculous. Of course, the person receiving them reads them, or else you're not going to know where to send them. So Chewie, someone or a group of people have seen either singularly, one person or combined team has seen this woman's emails 36 times come in the space of 6 months. So that's absolutely 100% what happened, and they still didn't put it up the chain.
Right, so here's an excellent chance for her for Mark to throw that person under the bus. And that would be a smoke grenade. It wouldn't be a very authentic one, but it would definitely, you know, an emotional junior staffer deleted these emails. Sorry, not my fault. But yeah, this is again, your office, your staff. Nobody thought it was worth even just going, hey man, we've received these emails, and then you might want to have a look at them. You make the decision. You're the police minister. But yeah, it's fucked. Like, I think it's very, like, the police thing, that's its own silo, right? And we've been really clear here that it's great that this whole thing hasn't been politicized, and everybody's been really angry about it. And then that stops at this interview. Like, it just stops. I don't give him a pass on this anymore.
Yeah, so that's exactly what I was thinking when I was listening to Drew. We were all very gracious last week, and part of the reason we were gracious is so was everyone in the debating chamber. Even when we had Tamitha on, Tamitha went, well, she said, I appreciated the tone, things could have been done like as the Greens would want to be a bit further advanced, but it seems that the politicians were given grace. But I was listening to this yesterday as I was walking the dog going, This is not the case. I saw scroll past in the chat once or twice, you know, what does a leader actually do? Is they take ultimate responsibility. Now, Mark Mitchell should have gone, look, I am the head of this department. I'm the head of the police. I'm the police. Ultimate responsibility always falls with me. Now, I can tell you that the systems that we got set up are probably fine for more minor complaints. The first year police officer that gets a complaint from a person, the way that they were ticketed on the side of a road can go back to the police. But from now on, we're instigating rules that anything above whatever layer that comes in that's credible will certainly be put onto my team and put onto me. I'm ultimately responsible for this. You know, he could even have done that thing which no one ever believes. I offered my resignation to the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister declined it, and we're now moving on. That would have been like this is the thing about Luxon. He's a spineless jellyfish. He is a terrible businessman. He doesn't make deals, and he didn't do well for Air New Zealand. And the fish rots from the head. So if you've got an example in front of you of someone who won't go, I'm the Prime Minister, that means ultimately I'm responsible. Unfortunately, I don't know anything about it, but I'm going to take responsibility for sorting it out. Those words aren't in Luxon's vocabulary, which means they're not in Mitchell's, which means they're not in Stanford's, which means they're not in Willis's either. because the fish rots from the head. That is the person we model ourselves on. That's why all these fuckers have started saying, what I would say to you is, because the fish rots from the head. And it's like, and I know this from experience, you see some kind of cultish group like a church, if the person up the front grows a beard, beards start popping up around the men in that group. That's what happens. I'm not calling national a cult per se, but that's what happens. People follow the leader, and following this leader doesn't lend you into any area that you're going to take ultimate responsibility for something that you may have no hands on, but as the buck stopper you own.
National is a cult, and it's a cult of lack of personality.
Yeah. Let us go and play a bit more of this. This has technically got 2 minutes to go. I don't know if we'll get to the end of it, but we'll see.
No one was to be notified. No one was to be aware. It was just to be sent straight through the Commissioner's office to be dealt with. And at that time, no one had any visibility on the integrity issues we're dealing with now. And I just want to make this clear, because my private sec, I have enormous confidence in. She has been hit very hard by this. It is not her fault.
Because she
was
fucked
put
up.
in an awful position, because she had full trust in the Commissioner of the Police.
Yep.
And she thought the Commissioner's actually dealing with this. There was no one better to deal with, unfortunately.
If she saw 36 emails and she still had trust after 10, after 15, after 20, after 27, after 33, still had faith, don't you think your boss might want to know about that?
This woman, his press secretary, had such utter and total faith in the police commissioner that she was forwarding complaints about the commissioner onto the commissioner.
I don't think he said about the commissioner. Do you want me to go back? I just think the complaints. I'll go back. He'll go.
She has been hit very hard by this. It is not her fault. She was put in an awful position, because she had full trust in the Commissioner of the Police.
Full trust.
And she thought the Commissioner's actually dealing with this. There was no one better to deal with. Unfortunately, she was operating in an environment that none of us knew about it, that we had major integrity issues.
So no, dealing with it meaning McSkimming.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Look, that's a judgment failure. Like, that is absolutely a judgment failure and an expectation failure. Like, this, you would hope that this doesn't come up often.
Yeah.
But surely the expectation must be set is that if there is a complaint involving the upper echelons of police, then that hits the yardstick of telling the Minister for Police about it. Like, this affects your portfolio. It affects, if this goes wrong, how bad does it go wrong? How does it blow up in your boss's face? Like, purely from an ass covering, let alone a justice, natural justice point of view. This is bad. This is very, very bad.
Yeah, and look, it still might end up being that everything that was said last week was correct, but right now this man is being slippery and slimy and not even acknowledging that these practices and processes weren't fit for purpose. That's all I'm looking for. I'm actually not looking to hold him any more responsible today than I did last week for the actions, but what I am going to do is looking for him to take responsibility for how his office performed, which wasn't fit for purpose, which is obvious again by what happened. So this whole, well, it was fine until this point. Well, we had practices in place. Well, no, actually, it was fine until this point, but obviously it was not fit for purpose because look what happened. That's all he's missing. Like, that's all he's missing to be an actual leader. I'm going to push play before I blow my stack.
Inside the executive.
So you said that this is the kind of standard practice in ministers' offices, and I get that this is all kind of in the weeds a little bit, but to be totally clear, like, if I was to email Shane Jones to complain about MPI, or I was to email Erica Stanford to complain about the Ministry of Education, should it be my expectation that those emails would actually be rerouted to the respective ministries, as opposed to going to the
They
minister?
will be. They'll be triaged. There's hundreds of emails and correspondence that comes through every day to the minister's office. They are rerouted to their ministry so that they could.
But it's not really. I mean, I don't mean to cut in any much more, but it's very different Because when you're complaining about a police officer, someone who has the ability to take your freedom away, to impose a fine on you, etc., it's very different from complaining about something that's happening, within the Department of Conservation, and you're complaining about a path. You know what I mean? I'm not saying it's exactly as black and white as this, but this is different. This is complaining about the actions of someone who may well have a gun on their hip, who has the power to throw you in the back of a car in handcuffs. It's not the same to be complaining to the Ministry of Education about the new teaching standards. You know what I'm saying? So it's not, even though I think they might even talk about education here, it's different because a police officer, a teacher is not going to put you in handcuffs and throw you in the back of a car and take you to a cell and fingerprint you. That's not going to happen. So there should be different standards.
Can get an answer to their query or the issue that they bring.
But if it's a complaint
I'm not going to talk to how they specifically run their offices, because everyone will have a different way of doing that. The system works. The system that works in my office had worked.
It doesn't work.
It works until it doesn't work, which is
it doesn't work, as is the evidence we have before her.
The biggest scandal involving the police, and it involved your office.
And what does it say about him? The system works. It doesn't work, or else we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Can you imagine how this would have played if... So these 36 emails run in. The secretary goes to Mark, hey, look, I think you might want to cast your eye over this. Mark Mitchell raises it with the IPCA to commence their investigation. IPCA makes its findings public, as they have done, and say the minister's office drew our attention to this.
Yeah.
Covered in glory, Mark Mitchell comes up to the podium and goes, as a former frontline police officer, I am angered and ashamed at the Deputy Commissioner and the Commissioner. I'm furious. They're both gone. Fuck them.
Especially if you said that, that would be double tick. Can I say there's one other thing? And I listened to this interview in the week, and then I watched it again today to find the clip. And Bruce asks a question which I've been wondering as well. I'm unclear on whether Mark Mitchell changed the process. Bruce said he has, or this is how it always, that was the system. Because that's the next question to ask. If this is Mark Mitchell's system about sending complaints straight back to police, but under the last police minister that wasn't the system, then that once again speaks to his leadership roles and middle management role, because the system he put in place was a part of the reason that this fell through the gaps. So we'll figure that out. We'll find it out.
Doing that. The system works. The system that works in my office had worked up until the time we had a corrupt police executive. That is where the failure was. It was not in the system. It was the fact that we're coming up against a corrupt police executive, and that is where the failure was.
So they are corrupt.
He said the word.
Well, you've used the word.
No, you used the word.
Yeah, I have used it, but and actually, to be honest with you, if
I need to have one of those beep, 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 beep sound effects on the board.
You use the word.
Yeah, I have used it, but and actually, to be honest with you, if you, from a personal view, my own personal view,
not
the view of the government, but as the police minister, having seen what's happened, seen the behaviour that's been perpetrated, seen the way the victim has been treated, seen the way that power has been used to subvert the processes in an intentional way, then I think a lot of people would probably, like I said, if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, that's what we had to deal with.
But in a personal view, not the government.
I
think it crossed the boundary, absolutely.
So there you go. That's why we only had one clip, Whānau, because it took us about 20 minutes to get through it. But real interesting at the end, because at the start of that interview, Jack Tane used the word corruption, and Mitchell did a politicians thing where he talked about what the IPCA had laid out, and they hadn't used that word, but at no point did he say whether he thought it was or not. And then it just slipped out of his mouth, and then the backtracking went, yeah, totally.
That is corrupt. He said the truth which is what triggered a panic response, because he's a national MP, and the truth triggers a panic response every time.